The Crown Prince's Secret Fan Club. Chapter 1. The Kingdom's Biggest Gossip. There were only 3 things the Kingdom of Valeria loved more than sleep: fresh bread, royal scandals, and the anonymous account called MoonForTheSun. Every sunrise, merchants delayed opening their shops. Knights checked their communication crystals before putting on armor. Even ministers secretly refreshed the page beneath the council table, because nobody knew what today's post would be. One morning it read, "Breaking news. His Highness frowned at a pigeon today." The pigeon immediately reconsidered its life choices. Another day, His Highness removed his gloves during sword practice. Several witnesses, including me emotionally, did not survive. Thousands of comments followed within minutes. "Who are you? Are you spying on the prince? Please never stop posting. Marry whoever writes this." Only one person laughed while reading every reply. Royal Guard Rowan Ashford. Unfortunately, he also happened to be the account owner. Rowan quickly tucked his communication crystal into his pocket as another guard walked into the barracks. "Morning. Morning," Rowan answered far too casually. "You look suspicious." "I always look suspicious." "Fair point." The guard walked away. Rowan released the breath he'd been holding. That had been close. Very close. Running the kingdom's biggest gossip account was already dangerous. Running it while guarding the man everyone obsessed over? That was a terrible life decision. Especially because Rowan didn't post lies. Every compliment, every observation, every embarrassing moment of admiration was completely genuine. A palace bell echoed through the courtyard. Shift change. Rowan straightened his black and silver uniform and hurried toward the royal wing. Today's assignment? Protecting Crown Prince Adrian Valemont during the morning council meeting. The worst part wasn't the danger. It was having to stand 3 feet away from the man he'd accidentally fallen in love with years ago. As Rowan entered the council chamber, every noble immediately bowed. Then the doors opened once more. Silence swept across the room. Crown Prince Adrian stepped inside. Tall, elegant, midnight black hair, sapphire blue eyes that revealed absolutely nothing. He crossed the room with calm confidence, taking his seat without a single unnecessary word. The meeting hadn't even started, and Rowan was already mentally drafting tonight's fan post. He had absolutely no self-control. Unfortunately for him, someone else in the room had just begun paying attention too. The council meeting lasted 2 painfully long hours. Rowan knew because he'd counted, not the minutes. The number of times he'd accidentally looked at Crown Prince Adrian. 23. Which, in his defense, was fewer than yesterday. Progress. Adrian sat at the head of the table, listening as nobles argued over taxes, trade routes, and grain shortages. He barely spoke. He didn't need to. When he finally raised his head, the room fell silent on its own. The Eastern figures are incorrect. 3 simple words. Every minister scrambled for the reports. A moment later, one elderly advisor sighed. "He's right. Again." Rowan bit the inside of his cheek to stop himself from smiling. How is he always this impressive? The dangerous thought immediately became another mental draft for MoonForTheSun. Today's lesson: never argue with His Highness unless you enjoy being publicly corrected with terrifying elegance. Rowan almost laughed. He definitely couldn't post that until after his shift. The meeting finally ended, and the nobles filed out one by one. As Rowan turned to leave, a calm voice stopped him. "Guard." His heart skipped. He turned immediately. "Your Highness." Adrian studied him for a brief moment. "You've been on duty since dawn." "Yes, Your Highness." "You haven't eaten." Rowan blinked. "No. The kitchens still have breakfast. I'll go after my patrol." Adrian gave a single nod before walking away. That was it. A conversation lasting less than 30 seconds. Yet Rowan stood there like an idiot, staring after him. He noticed. No one ever noticed whether the guards had eaten. No one except Adrian. That evening, Rowan practically ran to his room. The moment the door closed, he pulled out his communication crystal. His fingers flew across the screen. Emergency announcement. His Highness somehow noticed I skipped breakfast today. Respectfully, how am I supposed to stay normal after that? He hit post. Within seconds, the comments poured in. "You're definitely in love. Whoever runs this account needs professional help. No, they need a royal wedding." Rowan buried his face in his pillow. "They're never letting me live this down." Miles away, in the royal residence, Adrian finished reviewing military reports. A notification lit up his own communication crystal. His eyes landed on the newest MoonForTheSun post. For the first time that day, the cold crown prince smiled. A small one, barely noticeable. Then, instead of putting the crystal away, he tapped follow. The next morning, Rowan woke up to 43 new notifications. He smiled. The latest post had gone viral again. One comment read, "At this point, MoonForTheSun knows the prince better than the prince knows himself." Rowan laughed. If only you knew. He slipped the crystal into his pocket and headed for duty. The palace buzzed with unusual excitement. Servants whispered. Knights exchanged curious glances. Even the cooks seemed distracted. "What happened?" Rowan asked another guard. "You didn't hear?" "Hear what?" The crown prince asked for a communication crystal. Rowan frowned. So, he hates those things. That was true. Adrian rarely cared about trends or gossip. He considered most of it a waste of time, which made the news strangely interesting. Later that afternoon, Rowan stood outside the prince's study. Inside, Adrian dismissed his advisors one by one until only silence remained. Then he picked up the crystal resting on his desk. The screen displayed only one page. MoonForTheSun. He scrolled through the posts again. The jokes were ridiculous. The admiration was obvious. Yet one thing caught his attention. The writer noticed details almost no one else did. A missed meal. A tired sigh. A tiny smile that lasted barely a second. Those weren't observations from a distant admirer. They came from someone close. Someone inside the palace. Adrian leaned back in his chair. So, a faint smile tugged at his lips. My mysterious admirer is nearby. For the first time in years, solving a mystery sounded more entertaining than royal paperwork. Outside the study, Rowan sneezed. He rubbed his nose. Someone must be talking about me. He shrugged and continued his patrol, completely unaware that he'd just become the target of the crown prince's newest obsession. Inside, Adrian tapped the follow button, then quietly said to himself, "Let's see if I can find you." Chapter 2. Hunting the Secret Admirer. Rowan's week started with terrible news. Crown Prince Adrian is personally selecting guards for his new security rotation. The entire barracks erupted. Imagine working beside him. I'd pass out. I'd ask for a transfer. Rowan silently agreed with the last one. When the captain entered holding a scroll, the room became quiet. He read the names one by one. Then, Rowan Ashford. Every head turned. Rowan stared at the captain. "Me? You report directly to the prince beginning today." His stomach dropped. An hour later, Rowan stood outside Adrian's private office. He straightened his uniform 3 times before knocking. "Enter." The office was surprisingly simple. Bookshelves lined one wall. A large window overlooked the palace gardens. Adrian sat behind a desk, signing documents without looking up. "You are Guard Ashford." "Yes, Your Highness." "I've reviewed your record." Rowan swallowed. Was this about the fan account? Impossible. There was no way. "You've never been late." "No, Your Highness." "You've received excellent evaluations." "Thank you." Only then did Adrian lift his head. Those sapphire blue eyes met Rowan's. For a brief moment, neither spoke. Adrian noticed something immediately. Whenever their eyes met, Rowan looked away first. "Interesting. You'll accompany me during meetings, inspections, and official visits." "Understood." "Oh, and one more thing." Rowan's heart pounded. "Yes." Adrian's expression remained perfectly calm. "Do you enjoy reading palace gossip?" Rowan almost choked. What? I asked a question. Not particularly." The prince returned to his paperwork. "You hesitated." Rowan stood frozen. Was it a random question? Or had Adrian already started looking for the owner of MoonForTheSun? As Rowan quietly left the office, Adrian watched the door close. Then a faint smile appeared. Interesting. Rowan spent the rest of the day convincing himself the prince's question had meant nothing. It had to be a coincidence. There was no possible way Adrian suspected him, right? Unfortunately, Adrian seemed determined to make him question his sanity. The next morning, the prince requested an inspection of the palace gardens. Only one guard accompanied him. Rowan. The gardens were peaceful, with fountains murmuring softly and colorful flowers swaying in the breeze. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Rowan almost relaxed. Almost. Then Adrian suddenly asked, "Do you enjoy writing?" Rowan stumbled over absolutely nothing. "Writing? MHM. What kind of writing?" The prince shrugged. "Anything. Letters. Stories. Observations." Rowan forced an awkward laugh. I've never really thought about it. Hmm. Adrian glanced at him from the corner of his eye. You hesitated again. Rowan's soul left his body. They continued walking until they reached a stone bridge overlooking a koi pond. Adrian rested one hand on the railing. Tell me, Rowan. Yes, Your Highness? If someone admired another person, Rowan immediately knew this conversation was dangerous. Would it be better to tell them? Or keep it secret forever? Rowan's heartbeat thundered. He looked down at the water. I suppose. It depends. On what? Whether the other person would accept those feelings. For the first time, Adrian didn't answer immediately. Instead, he smiled. A quiet smile. Almost thoughtful. Interesting. That evening, Rowan hurried back to his room. He grabbed his communication crystal. He needed to vent. Immediately, he typed furiously. Hypothetically, if someone keeps asking oddly specific questions, how worried should I be? He posted it. Within seconds, thousands of comments flooded in. Very. Run. You're either getting promoted or exposed. Please update us. We're invested now. Rowan groaned and buried his face in his pillow. This is how I die. Across the palace, Adrian received a notification. He opened the new post, then laughed. Not because the post was funny, because it confirmed exactly what he'd hoped. Every time he teased the account owner, a new post appeared. His mysterious admirer was definitely inside the palace, and they were getting wonderfully nervous. The next afternoon, Adrian announced an inspection of the royal archives. Only one guard was assigned to accompany him. Rowan. Again. At this point, the other guards had started giving him sympathetic looks. One even whispered, "Good luck." Rowan wasn't sure whether to thank him or cry. The archives were quiet, filled with towering shelves and dusty records dating back hundreds of years. Adrian wandered between them, occasionally pulling out old documents. Rowan followed a respectful distance behind. Tell me, Rowan. Yes, Your Highness? If you had a secret. Rowan immediately regretted waking up that morning. How well do you think you could keep it? He forced a smile. I'd like to think, very well. Really? Yes. Adrian picked up an ancient history book without looking at him. I disagree. Rowan blinked. Your Highness. I think people reveal themselves without realizing it. His calm voice echoed through the room. The words they choose. The things they notice. The people they can't stop talking about. Every sentence landed like an arrow. Rowan's palms grew damp. Was Adrian speaking generally, or directly to him? A palace librarian hurried over with several ledgers. Your Highness, these are the records you requested. Thank you. As the librarian left, a folded piece of paper slipped from the stack and landed near Rowan's boots. He picked it up automatically. Across the top was a familiar phrase. MoonForTheSun. His heart stopped. It wasn't one of his posts. It was a report. Someone had compiled dozens of the account's updates, with dates, locations, and notes. At the bottom, one sentence was circled. The author is almost certainly someone working inside the palace. Rowan looked up in alarm. Adrian was watching him, not smiling, not speaking, simply observing every tiny reaction. Slowly, the prince held out his hand. I believe that's mine. Rowan handed over the report with trembling fingers. Adrian folded it neatly, then said, almost casually, I dislike unfinished mysteries. He turned and walked toward the exit, leaving Rowan rooted to the floor. Because for the first time, he wasn't wondering if Adrian was searching for MoonForTheSun. He was wondering how much the prince already knew. Chapter 3. Caught. Rowan didn't post that night. For the first time in nearly 2 years, MoonForTheSun went silent. His followers immediately noticed. Where's today's update? Did the prince finally arrest you? Blink twice if you've been caught. Rowan stared at the comments with a groan. If only you knew. He locked the crystal inside a drawer. No more posts. At least until Adrian abandoned his investigation. The following morning, Rowan reported for duty. The captain handed him a sealed letter. His Highness has requested you. Again. The captain smirked. I'd stop asking questions if I were you. That wasn't reassuring. When Rowan arrived at Adrian's private office, the prince wasn't alone. Several advisors stood around a large map. The meeting ended moments later, leaving only the two of them. Adrian looked up, closed the door. Rowan's heartbeat quickened. He obeyed. The heavy wooden doors clicked shut. The room suddenly felt much smaller. I noticed something yesterday. Adrian spoke while arranging documents. What is it, Your Highness? You didn't make a post. Rowan froze. Complete. Utter. Silence. Excuse me. The account. Adrian finally met his eyes. MoonForTheSun. Every ounce of color drained from Rowan's face. His brain refused to function. He hadn't imagined that. The prince had actually said the name. Adrian leaned back in his chair. I've grown rather accustomed to reading it before bed. Rowan blinked. You read it every evening, and occasionally during boring meetings. Rowan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. The prince smiled. Not smug, not cruel, simply amused. I particularly enjoyed the pigeon incident. Rowan wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Your Highness. I can explain. I'm sure you can. Adrian folded his hands. But first, his sapphire blue eyes sparkled with quiet amusement. I'd like to know why my royal guard has been publicly documenting my life. The room fell silent. Rowan realized there was no escaping anymore. His greatest secret had just become a conversation. Rowan accepted his fate. There was no clever excuse. No believable lie. Only humiliation. I'm sorry, Your Highness. Adrian tilted his head. For what? For all of it. The account. The posts. The embarrassing comments about your sleeves. The prince pressed his lips together. He was trying not to laugh. It didn't work. A quiet chuckle escaped him. Rowan groaned. Please don't laugh. I'm trying. You are absolutely not trying. Fair enough. Adrian rose from his chair and walked toward the window. I expected something much worse. Rowan blinked. Worse. I assumed whoever ran the account was selling palace secrets. He turned back with a small smile. Instead, I found someone complaining that I looked too handsome during sword practice. Rowan covered his face. I'd like to resign. Denied. I haven't officially offered. I'm denying it in advance. Despite himself, Rowan laughed. It was short, helpless, but real. The laughter faded into a comfortable silence. Adrian studied him for a moment. Can I ask you something honestly? Yes. Why me? Rowan lowered his hands. What do you mean? Why did you start writing about me? There was no teasing in Adrian's voice anymore. Only quiet curiosity. Rowan looked down. I don't remember the exact day. I just remember seeing you help one of the kitchen boys. He dropped an entire tray. Everyone expected you to scold him. But instead, a smile tugged at Rowan's lips. You knelt down and helped him clean it up. Adrian frowned slightly. I barely remember that. I do. You even apologized because he was shaking. The prince fell silent. You've always been kind. Rowan continued softly. The kingdom calls you cold. They only see the crown. I saw the person wearing it. The room became impossibly quiet. Adrian stared at him. Not as a prince. Not as a ruler. Just as Adrian. Finally, he smiled. A genuine one. So that's why? Rowan nodded. Embarrassed. I never expected you to read any of it. I know. Adrian stepped closer. And that's exactly why I believed every word. Their eyes met. Neither looked away. For the first time, the space between a crown prince and his guard didn't feel quite so large anymore. Neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was peaceful. Rowan had imagined this moment 100 different ways. Every version ended with him being dismissed from the royal guard. None of them ended with Adrian smiling at him. Finally, Adrian broke the silence. Rowan. Yes, Your Highness? I have one last question. Rowan nodded nervously. When you wrote those posts, were you trying to get my attention? Rowan's eyes widened. No. The answer came so quickly that Adrian laughed. I was hoping you'd never see them. So the answer is no. Absolutely no. Rowan rubbed the back of his neck. They were just. He searched for the right words. A place where I could say the things I wasn't allowed to say out loud. Adrian's smile softened. And what were those things? Rowan took a slow breath. That I admire you. That I worry when you skip meals. That I like seeing you smile. He laughed awkwardly. And that you look unfairly handsome when your sleeves are rolled up. The prince chuckled. I noticed that post. I know. I've been embarrassed about it every day since. Adrian closed the distance between them until only a single step remained. So, Rowan looked up. I've discovered my secret admirer. His sapphire eyes held Rowan's without wavering. What do you think I should do now? Rowan's heartbeat thundered. I don't know. I do. Adrian reached into his coat. For one horrifying second, Rowan thought he was about to produce a written confession. Instead, he pulled out a small folded note. It was old, slightly worn around the edges. He handed it to Rowan. Confused, Rowan unfolded it. It was a copy of his very first MoonForTheSun post. I kept it, Adrian admitted quietly. It reminded me that somewhere in this palace, someone saw me as Adrian before they saw me as the crown prince. Rowan looked up, speechless. A faint blush dusted Adrian's ears. I've spent weeks trying to find you. He smiled. And now that I have, his voice dropped to a gentle murmur. I'd like to take my secret admirer on a proper date. Rowan forgot how to breathe. Provided, Adrian added with a teasing smile. He says yes.
This story is brought to you by Smiles That Linger. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Now let's dive right back in.
Chapter 4. The Crown Prince's Boyfriend. Rowan said yes. He wasn't entirely sure when. His brain had stopped working somewhere between, I'd like to take my secret admirer on a proper date, and Adrian smiling at him. All he remembered was nodding, very enthusiastically. 3 nights later, their first date took place. Officially, Adrian had scheduled a private inspection of the royal greenhouse. Unofficially, it was the worst hidden date in history. The greenhouse glowed beneath hanging lanterns, filled with rare flowers and the sweet scent of jasmine. There are no advisors, Adrian said with a satisfied smile. No ministers. No paperwork. Rowan looked around. Just plants. I happen to like plants. I can see that. And I happen to like one royal guard. Rowan nearly walked into a lemon tree. You did that on purpose. I absolutely did. Adrian looked far too pleased with himself. You blush very easily. I wonder why. They wandered through the winding paths, talking about everything except politics. Rowan learned Adrian secretly loved terrible mystery novels. Adrian learned Rowan couldn't whistle no matter how hard he tried. I've practiced. I believe you. I watched 3 tutorials. Adrian laughed so hard he had to stop walking. 3. They contradicted each other. For a moment, Rowan simply watched him. The prince's laughter echoed softly through the greenhouse. It was warm, unrestrained, beautiful. I wish people could see you like this, Rowan said quietly. Adrian's smile faded into something gentler. They're seeing me now. Rowan frowned. What do you mean? I'm with the one person who always did. Heat rushed to Rowan's face. He looked away. You're making this very difficult. I know. I was trying to be romantic. You succeeded. They reached a quiet fountain hidden among climbing roses. Moonlight spilled through the glass ceiling. The moment felt strangely perfect. Adrian stepped closer. So, our first official date. Rowan nodded. How am I doing? Rowan smiled. I'd give you 9 out of 10. Adrian looked genuinely offended. Only 9. You've teased me at least 6 times. I can make it 10. Oh. The prince leaned in just enough for their shoulders to brush. His voice dropped to a playful whisper. I haven't even started. Before Rowan could answer, footsteps echoed outside the greenhouse. Someone was coming. The footsteps grew louder. Rowan reacted first. He grabbed Adrian's wrist and pulled him behind a wall of climbing roses. The prince stumbled forward until they were standing chest to chest. Very, very close. Neither of them moved. A gardener walked past, humming quietly, carrying a basket of herbs. He never glanced their way. The moment he disappeared, Rowan let out a relieved sigh. We're safe. We are. Adrian made no effort to step back. Instead, he looked down at Rowan with an amused smile. You know what? I quite like being rescued by my boyfriend. Rowan's ears turned bright red. You said that very loudly. I wanted to. What if someone heard? They would have learned the truth. Rowan buried his face in Adrian's shoulder with a defeated groan. You're impossible. I've been told. His laughter rumbled softly beneath Rowan's ear. It was unfairly comforting. Realizing how close they still were, Rowan quickly stepped back. I should probably maintain some professionalism. A sensible idea. Adrian nodded thoughtfully, then reached out and straightened Rowan's slightly crooked collar. His fingertips brushed lightly against Rowan's neck. The simple touch sent a shiver down Rowan's spine. There. Adrian smiled. Much better. You? Rowan swallowed. Did that on purpose? I absolutely did. You enjoy watching me panic. I enjoy watching you blush. Rowan covered his face. I walked right into that one. You usually do. They resumed walking, though their hands occasionally brushed together. Neither commented on it. Neither pulled away. As they reached the greenhouse exit, Adrian suddenly stopped. One more thing. What is it? The prince gently took Rowan's hand. His thumb traced slow circles across Rowan's knuckles. I've wanted to do this since our first conversation. Rowan's pulse quickened. Do what? Adrian leaned in, close enough that Rowan could feel his warm breath. Their noses were barely inches apart. So nervous, Adrian whispered with a teasing smile. It's adorable. Before Rowan could recover, Adrian pressed a soft kiss to the corner of his forehead. Brief, gentle, gone almost instantly. When Adrian stepped back, Rowan looked completely speechless. The prince chuckled. I believe that's 10 out of 10. Somewhere outside the greenhouse, a communication crystal flashed. Someone had just taken a picture. Rowan didn't sleep. Not after the forehead kiss. Not after Adrian had smiled at him like that. And certainly not after realizing someone might have seen them. The next morning, he arrived at the training grounds with dark circles under his eyes. One of the guards frowned. Did you get attacked by a bear? No. Then why do you look like that? I lost a fight with my own thoughts. That's somehow more concerning. Before Rowan could answer, a palace messenger approached. Guard Ashford. Yes. His Highness requests your presence. Of course he does, Rowan muttered. Adrian was waiting in a small strategy room overlooking the courtyard. The moment Rowan entered, the prince noticed the exhaustion on his face. You didn't sleep. Rowan blinked. How did you? You yawned before saying good morning. I hate how observant you are. I know. Adrian's lips curved into a smile. And I like that you still came. They spent the next hour reviewing security plans, though Adrian kept stealing glances at Rowan whenever he thought he wasn't looking. Finally, Rowan caught him. What? You have something on your face. Rowan panicked. I do. Adrian stepped closer. Very close. He gently brushed a thumb across Rowan's cheek. There. Rowan's breath caught. There wasn't anything, was there? No. You liar. I prefer creative. Rowan sighed dramatically. You flirt like it's a royal duty. It might be. A knock interrupted them. Your Highness. Enter. An elderly advisor stepped inside carrying several documents. His eyes moved from Adrian to Rowan, then to the very small distance between them. One eyebrow rose. Neither man spoke. The advisor slowly placed the papers on the table. I'll return later. He turned and left before either of them could respond. The door clicked shut. Silence. Then Rowan buried his face in his hands. He knows. Adrian looked surprisingly calm. He suspects. That's worse. I disagree. Rowan stared at him. How are you this relaxed? The prince's smile softened. Because I'm tired of pretending. He reached for Rowan's hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze before letting go. If the truth comes out. His sapphire eyes met Rowan's. I won't let you face it alone. Outside the room, the advisor hurried down the corridor. By lunchtime, half the palace had heard a very interesting rumor. Chapter 5. The fan club explodes. By sunrise, the rumor had spread to every corner of the palace. No one claimed to know anything. Yet everyone somehow knew everything. Or thought they did. Rowan discovered this when two maids abruptly stopped talking as he walked past. Morning, he said. They smiled far too brightly. Good morning, Guard Ashford. As soon as he rounded the corner, the whispering resumed. Rowan sighed. I'm definitely the topic. The rumors became even stranger by breakfast. One cook insisted the prince was secretly courting a foreign princess. A stable boy swore it was a mysterious noble. One footman confidently declared, it's obviously someone inside the palace. Rowan nearly dropped his tray. His communication crystal buzzed. A new MoonForTheSun notification. Someone had posted. Has anyone else noticed His Highness smiles more these days? The comments exploded. He's in love. Who is it? MoonForTheSun probably knows. Rowan immediately locked his crystal. Nope. Not today. Meanwhile, Adrian was enjoying his morning tea. An advisor entered with a weary expression. Your Highness. Yes. The palace staff are distracted. How unfortunate. They believe you're romantically involved with someone. Adrian calmly sipped his tea. So I've heard. The advisor blinked. You don't seem surprised. I'm not. Should we deny the rumors? Adrian set his cup down. No. The advisor froze. No. I've spent years correcting false reports. A small smile appeared. It would be refreshing if they were right for once. The advisor stared at him in stunned silence, then slowly smiled. I'll pretend I didn't hear that. Thank you. After he left, Adrian looked out the window toward the training yard. Far below, Rowan was sparring with another guard. Even from this distance, Adrian recognized the determined expression on his face. His smile softened. I wonder how much longer we can keep pretending. At that exact moment, a palace servant quietly handed the advisor a communication crystal. On the screen was a blurry photograph. It showed two figures inside the royal greenhouse. One wore a prince's uniform, the other, a royal guard's cloak. The photograph spread through the palace before noon. Fortunately, it was blurry. Unfortunately, it was just clear enough to start 100 new theories. One headline read, "Is the crown prince secretly dating a royal guard?" Another simply said, "The shoulders match." Rowan stared at the screen in horror. The shoulders? A nearby guard nodded seriously. You'd be surprised what people can identify. I don't want to know. The comments were even worse. Enhance the image. I've compared the uniforms. Someone solved this mystery. One person even uploaded sketches comparing every royal guard's hairstyle. Rowan immediately tucked his crystal away. I've underestimated unemployed people. That afternoon, Adrian requested Rowan's presence in his private library. The moment Rowan stepped inside, he sighed dramatically. We're doomed. Adrian looked up from his book. Good afternoon to you too. People are analyzing my shoulders. Your shoulders? They think they belong to the prince's mystery lover. Adrian tried very hard to remain composed. He failed. A laugh escaped before he could stop it. This isn't funny. It really is. I'm having an existential crisis. And I'm apparently dating an exceptionally recognizable pair of shoulders. Rowan pointed accusingly at him. Don't encourage them. I'm trying not to. You smiled. I did. You enjoy my suffering. I enjoy you. The words slipped out so naturally that both of them paused. Rowan's face warmed. Adrian smiled softly. I meant that. The room grew quiet. Without thinking, Rowan stepped closer. So did I. Their fingers found each other between the shelves. A small gesture, hidden from the world, more meaningful than either of them expected. Then came a sharp knock. Both immediately let go. Enter, Adrian called. The elderly advisor from before stepped inside. His eyes flicked briefly toward the two men, then to the suspiciously large space they'd just put between themselves. He sighed. Your Highness, I believe we need to have a conversation. The tone in his voice wasn't angry. It was concerned. And Rowan suddenly realized the rumors had become something much bigger than gossip. The elderly advisor closed the door behind him. For a long moment, he simply looked at Adrian, then at Rowan. Finally, he sighed. I've served this family for 38 years. Neither man spoke. I've watched His Majesty sneak out of lessons. I've caught Her Majesty hiding stray kittens in the palace. And I've learned one very important lesson. He folded his arms. When two people suddenly insist nothing is happening, something is usually happening. Rowan wished the floor would open beneath him. Adrian, however, remained perfectly calm. What gave us away? The advisor blinked. You just admitted it. Oh. Rowan turned slowly toward Adrian. You weren't supposed to answer that. I realized. A little late. A little. The advisor pinched the bridge of his nose. I don't need details. I'm not here to judge either of you. His expression softened. I'm here because this photograph is no longer circulating only inside the palace. He placed a communication crystal on the desk. Adrian activated it. The image appeared again. Only this time, it had already spread across the kingdom. Hundreds of thousands of people had viewed it. Below it were endless comments. Find the guard. MoonForTheSun definitely knows. This is the greatest royal mystery ever. Rowan felt his stomach sink. It's escaped the palace. The advisor nodded. And it won't stop there. Silence settled over the room. At last Adrian looked at Rowan. Not as a prince. Not as the future king. Simply as the man who cared about him. I'm sorry. Rowan shook his head. You have nothing to apologize for. I brought you into this. You asked me on one date. I said yes. A small smile tugged at Adrian's lips. You did. I'd say yes again. For a heartbeat, the advisor pretended to study the curtains. Then he cleared his throat. If the kingdom discovers the truth before you speak, they'll write the story for you. Adrian's expression grew resolute. No. He stood. They won't. Rowan looked up. Adrian reached for his hand without hesitation. His voice was calm. Certain. They've had enough gossip. It's time they heard the truth from me. The advisor smiled faintly. I thought you'd say that. Outside the palace, another notification spread across the kingdom. The official royal household had just announced that the crown prince would address the nation at sunrise. Chapter 6. The Kingdom's Favorite Love Story. By sunrise, the palace gates were overflowing. Citizens filled the square. Merchants abandoned their stalls. Even travelers delayed their journeys. Everyone wanted to hear the Crown Prince's announcement. Rowan stood behind the balcony doors, trying not to pace. I can't do this. Adrian looked up from adjusting his gloves. You don't have to. They'll stare. They probably will. They'll judge you. Adrian walked over and gently took Rowan's trembling hands. They can judge me all they want. His voice was steady. But they don't get to decide who I love. Rowan searched his eyes. There wasn't a trace of doubt. Only certainty. Only warmth. You really mean that? I've never meant anything more. A palace attendant knocked softly. Your Highness, it's time. Adrian nodded. Then, before opening the doors, he leaned in and pressed a quick kiss against Rowan's forehead. The same place as their first date. For luck, he murmured. Rowan laughed despite his nerves. I think you're stealing lucky kisses. I absolutely am. The balcony doors opened. A wave of cheers rolled across the square. Adrian stepped forward. The crowd fell silent almost instantly. He looked across the thousands of faces before speaking. For years, my life has been the subject of rumors. A few people laughed. So today, I'd like to replace gossip with truth. The square became completely still. I have indeed fallen in love. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Adrian smiled. And the person I love. He turned toward the open balcony doors. Is someone who has protected me long before he ever held my heart. I followed his gaze. Rowan took a slow breath, then stepped out beside him. The square erupted. Some cheered. Some cried. Some simply stared in shock. Adrian reached over and, without hesitation, intertwined his fingers with Rowan's. There would be no more hiding. Not anymore. For 3 whole seconds, the kingdom forgot how to make noise. Then the square erupted. Cheers echoed through the streets. Someone started clapping. Another shouted, "We knew it." Within moments, hundreds joined in. Rowan blinked in disbelief. They're cheering. I told you, Adrian said with a smile. They only wanted the truth. A young woman near the front of the crowd cupped her hands around her mouth. Your Highness. Adrian looked down. Yes. Is MoonForTheSun real? The entire square went silent again. Everyone leaned forward. Even Rowan. Adrian glanced sideways at him. A mischievous smile appeared. Oh, I believe he's standing beside me. The crowd exploded into laughter. Rowan covered his face. No. Oh, yes. Adrian was enjoying this far too much. Someone shouted. The pigeon post was my favorite. Another yelled. Thank you for the sleeves update. Rowan wanted to disappear into another kingdom. Adrian chuckled. I've been meaning to ask. Rowan peeked at him through his fingers. What? Were my sleeves truly that distracting? We're discussing this now. In front of everyone. Rowan groaned. I refused to answer. I'll take that as a yes. The crowd laughed again. The tension melted away. It no longer felt like a royal announcement. It felt like thousands of people celebrating alongside them. Later that afternoon, the palace was flooded with gifts. Flowers, letters, paintings. One elderly woman even sent 2 knitted scarves with a note attached. One for the prince. One for the young man who finally made him smile. Rowan quietly folded the note. I don't deserve this. Adrian looked at him gently. You spent years making strangers smile with your posts. He nudged Rowan's shoulder. I think it's your turn. Rowan smiled. A real one. The kind Adrian had fallen in love with long before either of them admitted it. And somewhere in the palace, a familiar notification appeared. The account MoonForTheSun had just posted for the first time in days. The new post from MoonForTheSun spread across the kingdom in minutes. It was much shorter than usual. No jokes, no dramatic commentary, just one message. To everyone who laughed with me, guessed wildly, and stayed for every ridiculous update. Thank you. It turns out the prince really did read my posts. And somehow, he loved the writer even more. Beneath it was one final sentence. Mission accomplished. The comments flooded in faster than ever. We were here. This is the greatest love story in the kingdom. Long live the prince and his biggest fan. Even people who had never followed the account shared the post. By evening, it had become part of the kingdom's history. As the celebrations faded, Adrian found Rowan on the palace balcony overlooking the gardens. You disappeared. I needed a quiet moment. Rowan smiled as Adrian joined him. I keep expecting to wake up. Adrian slipped his hand into Rowan's. If this is a dream, I hope nobody wakes us. They stood together, watching lanterns drift into the evening sky. After a comfortable silence, Adrian reached into his coat. I almost forgot. He pulled out a small leather-bound notebook. Rowan frowned. What's that? My favorite collection. He handed it over. Rowan opened it. His eyes widened. Every page contained a handwritten copy of a MoonForTheSun post. The very first one. The pigeon incident. The sleeves. The breakfast post. Even the one Rowan had almost deleted out of embarrassment. You copied them? I wanted them somewhere no one could erase. Rowan looked up, speechless. Adrian smiled. Whenever being crowned prince became exhausting, I'd read one. They reminded me that somewhere in the palace, someone cared whether I'd smiled that day. Rowan's eyes shimmered. Without thinking, he wrapped his arms around Adrian. The prince returned the embrace immediately. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The anonymous admirer had become the prince's greatest treasure, and the cold crown prince had found the one person who loved Adrian before the crown. The kingdom's favorite gossip became its favorite love story. Adrian's POV, the day I fell for my secret fan. People assume I fell in love the day I discovered Rowan was MoonForTheSun. They're wrong. By then, it was already far too late. The truth is, I fell in love one anonymous post at a time. The first post that caught my attention wasn't even particularly flattering. His Highness secretly gave his umbrella to a little girl during the rain. He walked back soaked. Please don't tell him I noticed. I remember staring at the screen. I had done exactly that. No reporters had been there. No advisors. No nobles. Just one royal guard standing at the edge of the street. I wondered who could have seen it. Night after night, I found myself searching for new updates. Not because they praised me, because they reminded me that someone was paying attention to the little things. Whether I smiled, whether I skipped meals, whether I looked tired. Nobody had ever written about Adrian. They only wrote about the crown prince. MoonForTheSun was different. Whoever was behind that account saw me. When I finally realized the writer worked inside the palace, I should have assigned investigators. Instead, I decided to investigate personally, mostly because I was curious, partly because I was bored, and, if I'm being truthful, because I hoped I'd meet the person who made me smile every evening. I didn't expect it to be Rowan. Although, looking back, I probably should have. He was always watching to make sure I'd eaten, always stepping in front of danger before I even noticed it, always looking away whenever I caught him staring. He was wonderfully terrible at hiding his feelings. The day I asked why he started the account, his answer stayed with me. I saw the person wearing the crown. Not the title, not the future king, just me. In that moment, I knew something. No throne, no kingdom, no crown would ever mean more to me than the man standing in front of me. So yes, I found my biggest fan. But somewhere along the way, he quietly became my favorite person. And I hope that, for the rest of our lives, I'll remain his favorite post.
And that brings us to the end of the story. This is Smiles That Linger, where every story leaves something behind. The story may be over, but the smile doesn't have to be. Until next time, let it linger. And if this story brought a smile to your face, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for listening.